Your body operates on principles so intricate that most of what keeps you alive happens entirely without permission. Right now, as you read this, your heart is adjusting its rhythm based on signals you'll never consciously detect. Your kidneys are filtering blood through microscopic structures more complex than any factory, and your brain is constructing reality itself from electrical impulses bouncing between billions of cells. These aren't metaphors. They're the actual mechanics of being human, and most of us will live entire lifetimes without understanding how any of it works. What follows isn't a textbook. It's a collection of stories about the strange, beautiful machinery that keeps you moving through the world. Some of these stories will make you reconsider something as simple as breathing. Others might change how you think about pain, memory, or why you get tired after a heavy meal. Each one reveals something essential about the body you inhabit, but rarely stop to notice. Let's start with something deceptively simple. Your skin, the boundary between you and everything else, doesn't just sit there like a wrapper. It's actively negotiating with the world every second, making split decisions about temperature, pressure, and threat without bothering to consult you first. When you step outside on a cold morning, specialized nerve endings in your dermis fire off warnings before your conscious mind even registers the chill. Your blood vessels constrict near the surface, redirecting warmth to your core. Meanwhile, tiny muscles attached to each hair follicle contract, pulling the hair upright in a futile attempt to trap heat, a vestige from when our ancestors had enough body hair for this to actually matter. We called the result goosebumps, but it's really just your body executing an ancient survival protocol, one that hasn't gotten the memo that we invented coats. The skin does more than react to temperature. It's constantly shedding itself, sloughing off dead cells by the millions, replacing your entire outer layer roughly every month. You're not the same surface you were 4 weeks ago. The dust in your home is largely composed of these discarded cells, a somewhat unsettling reminder that you're always in the process of becoming slightly new. Beneath this renewable surface lies a network of sensors so dense that a single square inch contains hundreds of pain receptors, thousands of nerve endings, and millions of cells working to maintain the barrier between your insides and the chaos of the external world. Now consider your heart, that relentless pump in your chest that started beating before you were born and won't stop until the day you die. It doesn't wait for instructions. There's no on-off switch tucked away in your brainstem. The heart generates its own electrical signals through specialized cells in the sinoatrial node, a small cluster of tissue that acts as a natural pacemaker. These cells spontaneously depolarize, creating rhythmic waves of electricity that spread through the heart muscle, triggering each contraction. This system is so autonomous that a heart removed from the body will continue beating for a short time if kept in the right conditions, thumping away on a table like some macabre metronome, following instructions written into its very cells. Your heart adjusts constantly based on signals from the nervous system and hormones circulating in your blood. Physical exertion triggers a cascade of changes. Your muscles demand more oxygen, sensors detect rising carbon dioxide levels, and within moments, your heart rate climbs. Blood vessels dilate in your working muscles, drawing flow away from less critical areas like your digestive system. This is why running right after eating feels terrible. Your body is trying to serve two masters, digestion and exercise, and it's not particularly good at multitasking in this regard. Speaking of digestion, the process of turning food into fuel is far stranger than most people realize. It begins the moment you smell something appetizing. Your salivary glands activate, producing enzymes that will start breaking down carbohydrates before you've taken a single bite. This is Pavlovian, yes, but it's also deeply practical. Your body is preparing for incoming material, getting the assembly line ready. Once you swallow, the food doesn't just fall down your esophagus. Muscular contractions called peristalsis push it along in waves, squeezing the bolus of chewed food downward through a tube that's otherwise trying to stay closed. This process is so effective that you could theoretically swallow food while standing on your head, though you'd be wise not to test this at dinner parties. The food reaches your stomach, where it's bathed in hydrochloric acid strong enough to dissolve metal. Your stomach lining survives this caustic environment by constantly secreting a protective layer of mucus, rebuilding itself every few days. Without this mucus barrier, your stomach would digest itself, which occasionally happens in cases of severe ulcers. The stomach churns its contents into a semi-liquid mixture called chyme, which is then released in controlled amounts into the small intestine. Here, the real work begins. The small intestine, despite its name, is neither small nor simple. Stretched out, it would measure around 20 feet long, and its inner surface is covered in millions of tiny finger-like projections called villi. These villi are themselves covered in even smaller projections called microvilli, creating a surface area roughly the size of a tennis court, all folded up inside your abdomen. This massive surface allows for efficient absorption of nutrients, pulling molecules of protein, fat, and carbohydrates through the intestinal wall and into the bloodstream. What doesn't get absorbed continues into the large intestine, where water is reclaimed and trillions of bacteria help break down remaining material. These bacteria aren't invaders. They're residents, part of your microbiome, and they outnumber your own cells. You are, in a very real sense, a walking ecosystem, a collaboration between human cells and microbial partners that help you extract nutrients, synthesize vitamins, and even influence your mood through chemical signals sent to your brain. Your lungs operate on principles just as remarkable. Each breath pulls air through a branching network of tubes that split and split again, eventually terminating in tiny air sacs called alveoli. You have roughly 300 million of these alveoli, and each one is wrapped in a net of capillaries so fine that red blood cells must pass through single file. This is where the exchange happens. Oxygen diffuses across a membrane thinner than tissue paper, binding to hemoglobin molecules in your red blood cells, while carbon dioxide moves in the opposite direction, ready to be exhaled. The entire transaction takes less than a second. Then that red blood cell is off, carried by the current back to the heart, which pumps it out to tissues hungry for oxygen. Breathing itself is something you can control, but most of the time you don't. The medulla oblongata in your brainstem monitors carbon dioxide levels in your blood and adjusts your breathing rate automatically. Hold your breath and carbon dioxide builds up. Eventually, the urge to breathe becomes overwhelming, not because you're running out of oxygen, but because your brain is responding to rising CO2. This reflex is so strong that you cannot hold your breath until you pass out under normal circumstances. Your brainstem overrides your conscious will, forcing you to gasp for air before you lose consciousness. It's a safety mechanism, one of many that operate entirely outside your awareness. Your brain itself is perhaps the most bewildering piece of biological machinery ever assembled. Roughly 3 pounds of wrinkled tissue containing around 86 billion neurons, each connected to thousands of others through synapses that fire in patterns too complex to fully map. This organ generates consciousness, constructs your sense of self, and somehow produces the experience of reading these words right now. How it does this remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of science. What we do know is that the brain is organized into regions with specialized functions. The occipital lobe at the back processes visual information. The temporal lobes handle sound and language. The frontal lobe manages decision-making, planning, and impulse control. These regions don't work in isolation. They're constantly communicating, passing signals back and forth in patterns that shift with every thought, every sensation, every flicker of emotion. Damage to specific areas can produce bizarre deficits. Lose a small section of the visual cortex, and you might develop a blind spot you don't even notice because your brain fills in the gap with invented detail, a process called confabulation. Memory, too, is far stranger than it appears. It's not stored like files on a hard drive. Each time you recall a memory, your brain reconstructs it from scattered fragments, distributed across different regions. This reconstruction process is imperfect. Memories shift and change with each recall, incorporating new details or losing old ones. You can remember events that never happened if the false memory gets reinforced enough times. Eyewitness testimony, once considered the gold standard of evidence, is now understood to be shockingly unreliable because human memory is less like a recording and more like a story we tell ourselves, one that changes slightly with each retelling. Sleep plays a critical role in memory consolidation. During certain stages of sleep, your brain replays the events of the day, strengthening some neural connections and pruning others. This is why a good night's sleep can make a problem seem more solvable the next morning. Your brain has been working on it while you were unconscious, sorting through possibilities, making connections you couldn't see while awake. Dreaming, that strange theater of the sleeping mind, may be a side effect of this process. Random neural firing woven into narratives by a brain that's hardwired to find patterns and meaning, even in chaos. The relationship between body and mind is not one-directional. Your thoughts can alter your physiology in measurable ways. Imagine biting into a lemon right now. Really picture it, the sour juice flooding your mouth. If you engaged with that image fully, you probably just salivated. nothing physical happened, no lemon appeared. But your brain treated the imagined experience as real enough to trigger a physical response. This same principle underlies the placebo effect, where belief in a treatment can produce actual physiological changes, reducing pain, lowering blood pressure, even improving immune function, all because the brain expected healing to occur. Your body is also constantly making tiny adjustments you never notice. Your eyes make rapid movements called saccades several times per second, darting from point to build up a complete image of your surroundings. Your brain edits out the blurry bits between movements, presenting you with a seamless visual experience that doesn't actually exist in your raw sensory input. You have a blind spot in each eye where the optic nerve exits the retina, but you never see it because your brain fills in the missing information with an educated guess based on surrounding detail. Balance is another process that operates mostly beneath conscious awareness. Your inner ear contains 3 semicircular canals filled with fluid and lined with tiny hair cells. As your head moves, the fluid shifts, bending the hair cells which send signals to your brain about your orientation in space. This system works in concert with your vision and proprioceptive sensors in your muscles and joints, all feeding data to your cerebellum, which integrates the information and makes constant micro-adjustments to keep you upright. Damage to this system from infection or injury can leave you unable to walk in a straight line, the world spinning even when you're standing still. Pain, for all its unpleasantness, serves an essential function. It's your body's alarm system, alerting you to damage or potential damage. The sensation of pain is constructed in your brain based on signals from nociceptors, specialized nerve endings that respond to harmful stimuli. But pain isn't a simple readout of tissue damage. Context matters enormously. Soldiers injured in battle sometimes report feeling no pain until hours later, their brain suppressing the signal in the midst of life-threatening circumstances. Chronic pain can persist long after an injury has healed, the nervous system stuck in a loop of false alarms. The brain can even generate pain in body parts that no longer exist. Phantom limb pain, a haunting reminder that pain is as much about perception as it is about physical harm. The immune system operates like a microscopic military force, patrolling your body for invaders. White blood cells circulate constantly, sampling their environment, looking for molecular signatures that don't belong. When they find a virus or bacterium, they mount a coordinated attack, releasing chemicals that trigger inflammation, recruiting more immune cells to the site, and eventually producing antibodies specifically tailored to that particular threat. This system has memory. Once you've fought off a specific pathogen, specialized cells remember it, allowing your body to respond faster if you encounter it again. This is the principle behind vaccination, training your immune system to recognize a threat before you're actually exposed to it. But immunity can misfire. Sometimes the immune system attacks the body's own tissues, mistaking self for other, producing autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis or lupus. Allergies are another form of immune overreaction, the body treating harmless substances like pollen or peanuts as dangerous invaders, triggering responses that range from annoying to life-threatening. Your body also maintains a delicate balance of temperature, hovering around 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, though this varies slightly throughout the day and between individuals. The hypothalamus acts as your thermostat, monitoring core temperature and making adjustments to keep it stable. Too hot, and you start sweating, using evaporative cooling to shed excess heat. Blood vessels near the skin dilate, radiating warmth away from your core. Too cold, and the opposite happens. Blood flow to your extremities decreases, preserving heat for vital organs, and your muscles start shivering, generating warmth through rapid contractions. This thermoregulation is so critical that even a few degrees of deviation can be dangerous. A fever isn't the illness itself, but your body's strategy F, or fighting infection, raising the temperature to make conditions less favorable for pathogens. Hormones function as the body's chemical messaging system, traveling through the bloodstream to trigger effects in distant tissues. Insulin regulates blood sugar. Adrenaline prepares you for fight or flight. Melatonin helps regulate sleep. These molecules are produced by glands scattered throughout your body. The pituitary, thyroid, adrenals, pancreas, and others all working in concert, their outputs carefully regulated by feedback loops. Too much or too little of any hormone can throw the entire system into disarray. Consider what happens when you're startled. The sudden noise or movement triggers your amygdala, the brain's threat detection center. Within milliseconds, signals race down your spinal cord. Your adrenal glands dump adrenaline and cortisol into your bloodstream. Your heart rate spikes. Your pupils dilate. Blood rushes to your muscles. Your liver releases glucose for quick energy. All of this happens before you've had time to consciously process what startled you. Your body preparing for danger based on a threat that might not even exist. It's an ancient system, deeply wired, one that kept our ancestors alive, but now mostly just makes us jump at car horns and unexpected phone calls. These systems, the cardiovascular, the respiratory, the digestive, the nervous, don't operate in isolation. They're in constant communication, adjusting and responding to each other in ways that create the seamless experience of being alive. You don't think about coordinating your heart rate with your breathing, but they synchronize automatically. You don't consciously direct your digestive system to slow down when you're stressed, but it does because your body has priorities, and digesting lunch takes a back seat when your nervous system thinks you're in danger. Understanding these processes doesn't diminish their wonder. If anything, it deepens it. The fact that this staggering complexity emerged through evolution, through countless generations of trial and error, makes it all the more remarkable. You are the result of an unbroken chain of ancestors who survived long enough to reproduce, each generation passing down slight modifications, refinements to systems that worked well enough to persist. But there's more to explore, much more. The systems we've touched on here are just the beginning. The intricate dance between your skeletal structure and the muscles that move it. The way your sensory organs translate physical stimuli into the language of neurons. The remarkable processes that allow your body to heal from injury All of these deserve their own attention. Each one reveals another layer of the improbable machinery that keeps you functioning, that allows you to move through the world, to think, to feel, to exist. What we'll discover next takes us deeper into the architecture beneath the skin, into bones and muscles, and the framework that holds everything together, systems so fundamental that we forget they're there until something goes wrong. The skeletal system is what happens when engineering meets biology. 206 bones in the adult body, each one a study in efficiency. They're not just scaffolding, they're active, living tissue that constantly remodels itself, adapting to the demands you place on it. Every time you lift something heavy, run up a flight of stairs, or even just stand still, your bones are responding, reinforcing themselves along the lines of stress. This process never stops. Old bone tissue is broken down by cells called osteoclasts, while osteoblasts lay down new material. The entire skeleton replaces itself roughly every 10 years, though you'd never notice. It happens cell by cell, layer by layer, in a dance so gradual it's invisible. Bones are deceptively complex. The outer shell, cortical bone, is dense and smooth, providing strength and protection. Inside, trabecular bone forms a lattice of struts and spaces, light but remarkably strong, structured like the internal supports of a bridge. This spongy interior isn't just filler. It's where red blood cells are born, manufactured in the marrow by the millions every second. Your bones are, in effect, a factory for your circulatory system, producing the very cells that keep you alive. They also serve as a mineral bank, storing calcium and phosphorus that can be released into the bloodstream when needed. This dual role, structural and metabolic, makes them indispensable in ways most people never consider. Joints are where bones meet and where movement becomes possible. Some joints, like those in the skull, are fixed, fused together to protect the brain. Others, like the shoulder and hip, are ball and socket designs that allow rotation in multiple directions. Still others, like the hinge joints in your fingers and knees, move in one plane, back and forth, reliable and straightforward. Each joint is a marvel of biological design, lined with cartilage that cushions impact and reduces friction, bathed in synovial fluid that lubricates motion. When these systems fail, when cartilage wears down or inflammation sets in, movement becomes painful. A reminder of how much we rely on these silent mechanisms every single day. Muscles are the engines that move this framework, more than 600 of them, ranging from the massive gluteus maximus in your buttocks to the tiny stapedius in your ear, no larger than a grain of rice. Muscles work by contracting, shortening their length to pull on tendons, which in turn pull on bones. This contraction is powered by a chemical called ATP, adenosine triphosphate, the universal energy currency of cells. When a muscle contracts, ATP is broken down, releasing energy. When it relaxes, ATP must be regenerated, which is why intense exertion leaves muscles fatigued. They've burned through their available fuel and need time to replenish. Skeletal muscles, the ones you control consciously, are made up of long fibers bundled together and wrapped in connective tissue. Each fiber contains hundreds of myofibrils, and each myofibril is packed with sarcomeres, the functional units where contraction actually occurs. Inside each sarcomere, two types of protein filaments, actin and myosin, slide past each other when the muscle receives a signal from the nervous system. This sliding filament theory, confirmed in the mid-20th century, explains how muscles generate force. The myosin heads grab onto actin filaments, pull them inward, release, and grab again, like rowers pulling on oars. It's a molecular mechanism repeated billions of times across your body whenever you move. Smooth muscle, found in the walls of blood vessels and internal organs, operates without conscious input. It contracts slowly and can sustain tension for long periods, which is why your digestive system can keep moving food along even when you're asleep. Cardiac muscle, found only in the heart, is in a category of its own. It's striated like skeletal muscle, but involuntary like smooth muscle, and it never tires. From the moment it starts beating in the womb until the moment it stops, the heart muscle works without rest, a feat no skeletal muscle could match. Tendons connect muscles to bones. They're made of dense collagen fibers, tough and slightly elastic, capable of withstanding enormous tension. The Achilles tendon, running from your calf to your heel, can handle forces over 10 times your body weight when you jump. Ligaments, by contrast, connect bone to bone, stabilizing joints and preventing excessive movement. Both tendons and ligaments have relatively poor blood supply, which is why injuries to them heal slowly and incompletely. Once damaged, they're never quite the same. Posture is a constant negotiation between muscles and gravity. Standing upright requires the coordinated effort of dozens of muscles, making tiny adjustments to keep your center of mass balanced over your feet. This is why standing still for long periods is tiring. Your muscles are working the entire time, even though you're not moving. When posture is poor, when you slouch or hunch forward, certain muscles are forced to work harder than they should, leading to fatigue, discomfort, and eventually chronic pain. The body compensates, shifting load from one structure to another, but compensation has limits. Proprioception is the sense that tells you where your body is in space. It's why you can touch your nose with your eyes closed, why you don't have to look at your feet to walk, why you can catch a ball without calculating angles. Proprioceptive receptors are embedded in muscles, tendons, and joints, constantly sending feedback to the brain about position and movement. This sense is so fundamental that you don't notice it until it's gone. Damage to proprioceptive pathways, whether through injury or disease, leaves people disoriented, unable to coordinate movement, struggling with tasks that once required no thought at all. The spine deserves special attention. It's not a single bone, but a column of 33 vertebrae, stacked and cushioned by intervertebral discs, each one a fibrous ring surrounding a gel-like center. These discs act as shock absorbers, allowing the spine to bend and twist while protecting the spinal cord that runs through the central canal. The spine's S-shaped curve distributes weight efficiently, but it's also a source of vulnerability. Discs can herniate, vertebrae can fracture, nerves can be compressed. Back pain is nearly universal, a price paid for walking upright, for carrying weight on 2 legs instead of 4. Bone density peaks in early adulthood and then gradually declines. This loss accelerates with age, especially in women after menopause, leading to osteoporosis, a condition where bones become fragile and prone to fracture. Weight-bearing exercise, the kind that stresses bones, helps maintain density by signaling osteoblasts to keep building. Inactivity has the opposite effect. Astronauts in microgravity lose bone mass rapidly, as much as 1% per month, because their skeletons no longer bear weight. The body, efficient as always, reallocates resources away from structures it no longer deems necessary. Muscles adapt to the work you ask of them. Strength training causes microscopic tears in muscle fibers, which repair themselves and grow back thicker, a process called hypertrophy. Endurance training, by contrast, doesn't make muscles larger, but does increase their ability to use oxygen efficiently, building more mitochondria and capillaries within the tissue. These adaptations are specific. If you train for strength, you'll get stronger. If you train for endurance, you'll develop stamina. The body doesn't waste effort on improvements it doesn't need. Fascia is the connective tissue that wraps around muscles, bones, and organs, holding everything in place. For a long time, it was considered inert, just packing material. But research now suggests it plays an active role in movement and sensation. Fascia is richly innervated, meaning it's full of nerve endings, and it can transmit force across large areas of the body. When you stretch, you're not just lengthening muscles, you're also affecting the fascia, which can become tight and restricted, limiting range of motion and contributing to pain. Gait, the way you walk, is a fingerprint. No two people move exactly the same way. Your gait is influenced by the length of your legs, the flexibility of your hips, the strength of your core, even the shape of your feet. It's so distinctive that it can be used to identify you from a distance. Walking is a controlled fall, a process of catching yourself with each step, and it requires precise coordination between the nervous system, muscles, and skeletal structure. When something goes wrong, when a joint stiffens or a muscle weakens, gait changes, often in ways that create new problems elsewhere in the body. The hands are a masterpiece of evolution. 27 bones in each one, connected by ligaments, moved by tendons, controlled by muscles in the forearm and within the hand itself. This arrangement allows for precision and strength, the ability to grip a hammer or thread a needle, to play a piano or type on a keyboard. The opposable thumb, unique to primates, makes most of this possible. Without it, fine motor control vanishes. Try picking up a coin without using your thumb, and you'll understand how much you rely on it. Balance relies on input from 3 systems. Vision tells you where you are in relation to your surroundings. The vestibular system in the inner ear detects changes in head position and motion. Proprioception provides feedback from muscles and joints. The brain integrates these signals to maintain equilibrium. When one system fails, the others compensate, but imperfectly. People who lose their vision often develop heightened proprioception. Those with vestibular damage may rely more heavily on visual cues. The body adapts, but balance is never quite as effortless as it once was. Aging changes everything. Muscles lose mass and strength, a process called sarcopenia. Bones thin, joints stiffen, tendons and ligaments lose elasticity. range of motion decreases, reaction time slows. These changes are gradual but relentless, and they compound. A weaker muscle can't support a joint as well, leading to instability. Instability increases the risk of falls. Falls can fracture fragile bones. Recovery takes longer, and full recovery may not happen at all. This cascade is not inevitable, though. Resistance training, even in old age, can slow muscle loss and maintain strength. Flexibility work can preserve range of motion. The body remains responsive to stimulus even when decades have passed since youth. Injuries teach us what we take for granted. A sprained ankle makes walking an ordeal. A torn rotator cuff turns reaching overhead into agony. A herniated disc can radiate pain down an entire leg, making sitting, standing, even lying down uncomfortable. The musculoskeletal system is so integral to daily life that we forget it's there until something breaks. And when it does, recovery is often slow, measured in weeks or months, not days. Healing requires patience, rest, and often rehabilitation to restore function. Some injuries never fully heal. They leave behind limitations, reminders that the body, for all its resilience, is not indestructible. This system, bones and muscles and connective tissue, is what allows you to interact with the physical world. It's what lets you walk across a room, lift a bag of groceries, hug someone you care about. It's the bridge between intention and action, between thought and movement. And it's constantly responding to how you use it, strengthening where you stress it, weakening where you neglect it, adapting in ways both subtle and profound. What happens inside this framework, the signals that travel through nerves, the coordination that makes movement smooth and purposeful, is where the story continues. The nervous system doesn't work alone. Every muscle contraction, every heartbeat, every thought requires coordination between electrical signals and chemical messengers. When you decide to stand up from a chair, your brain doesn't just flip a switch. It orchestrates a cascade of events involving dozens of muscles, balance sensors in your inner ear, and feedback from proprioceptors scattered throughout your body. This communication happens faster than conscious thought, which raises an uncomfortable question. How much of what you do is actually decided by you? Studies using brain imaging have shown that neural activity can predict a choice several seconds before you become aware of making it. The decision to move your hand, for instance, shows up in brain scans before you consciously feel the urge to move. This doesn't mean free will is an illusion, but it does suggest that consciousness arrives late to the party, claiming credit for decisions already set in motion. The brain operates on multiple levels simultaneously. Some processes are deliberate and slow. Others are automatic and instantaneous. Most of the time, you're not steering the ship. You're watching it sail. Pain is one of those experiences that feels immediate and undeniable. You touch a hot stove, you pull your hand back. Simple, except it's not. The signal has to travel from your fingertip through sensory neurons into the spinal cord and up to the brain before you consciously register the sensation. That takes time, and in emergencies, time is expensive. So the body has a workaround, a reflex arc. The signal reaches the spinal cord, And instead of waiting for permission from the brain, the spinal cord sends an immediate command. Pull back. The hand moves before you've even felt the burn. Only afterward does the brain catch up, processing the pain and filing it away as a lesson learned. Don't touch that again. This kind of automation is everywhere. You breathe without thinking about it. Your heart beats without your input. Your pupils dilate in dim light. These are not conscious decisions. They're managed by the autonomic nervous system, which operates beneath awareness, keeping the body functional, while your conscious mind worries about other things. The autonomic system splits into two branches, sympathetic and parasympathetic. One accelerates, the other brakes. When you're startled, the sympathetic system kicks in, heart rate spikes, blood pressure rises, digestion slows, pupils widen. You're ready to fight or run. When the threat passes, the parasympathetic system takes over, slowing the heart, restarting digestion, returning the body to a resting state. These two systems are constantly balancing each other, making micro adjustments to keep you stable. But stability isn't the same as perfection. The nervous system can misfire. Chronic pain, for instance, often involves a nervous system that has learned to amplify signals that should be mild. The tissue may have healed, but the nerves remain sensitized, continuing to send distress signals long after the danger has passed. In those cases, the pain isn't protecting you. It's just noise. The brain interprets it as real because it has no way to distinguish between a useful warning and a false alarm. This is why pain management is so complex. You're not just treating damaged tissue. You're trying to retrain a system that has become stuck in a loop. The speed at which nerves transmit signals varies depending on the type of nerve and whether it's myelinated. Myelin is a fatty sheath that wraps around some axons, insulating them and allowing electrical impulses to jump between gaps rather than traveling the entire length of the fiber. This process, called saltatory conduction, dramatically increases transmission speed. Myelinated nerves can conduct signals at over 100 meters per second. Unmyelinated nerves are much slower, around 1 meter per second. This difference matters. The fastest signals carry information about sharp pain, sudden movement, or immediate threats. Slower signals handle background sensations like dull aches or temperature changes. Your brain prioritizes speed where it counts. When myelin breaks down, as it does in diseases like multiple sclerosis, the effects are devastating. Signals slow down or fail to transmit entirely. Muscles weaken. Coordination falters. Vision blurs. The nervous system, for all its redundancy and adaptability, depends on the integrity of these insulating layers. Without them, even the simplest tasks become laborious. This is one of the many ways the nervous system reveals its fragility. It's powerful, yes, but also vulnerable to disruption at multiple points along its pathways. Nerve damage can occur in many ways. Compression, as in carpal tunnel syndrome, where pressure on the median nerve causes pain and numbness in the hand. Severing, as in spinal cord injuries, where broken connections result in paralysis below the site of injury. Degeneration, as in peripheral neuropathy, where nerves gradually lose function, often starting in the extremities. Each type of damage produces different symptoms, but all share a common thread: the loss of communication between the brain and the body. When nerves can't transmit signals, muscles can't contract, sensations can't be felt, and the body becomes disconnected from itself. Regeneration in the nervous system is limited. Peripheral nerves can sometimes regrow slowly at a rate of about a millimeter per day. Central nervous system damage in the brain or spinal cord is far less forgiving. Neurons in these areas don't regenerate well, and scar tissue often prevents reconnection. This is why spinal cord injuries are so catastrophic. Once the connection is lost, it's rarely restored. Research into nerve regeneration is ongoing, exploring everything from stem cells to electrical stimulation. But for now, prevention remains the best strategy. Protect the spine. Avoid compression injuries. Manage conditions like diabetes that increase the risk of neuropathy. The brain itself is the most complex structure we know of. Roughly 86 billion neurons, each forming thousands of connections with other neurons, creating a network of staggering intricacy. These connections, called synapses, are where communication happens. When an electrical signal reaches the end of a neuron, it triggers the release of neurotransmitters, chemical messengers that cross the tiny gap between neurons and bind to receptors on the next cell. This converts the electrical signal into a chemical one, then back to electrical as the next neuron fires. It's a system that allows for both speed and flexibility, capable of transmitting signals rapidly while also modulating them based on context. Neurotransmitters come in many varieties, each with distinct effects. Glutamate is the most common excitatory neurotransmitter, ramping up activity in the brain. GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid, is the primary inhibitory neurotransmitter, calming neural activity. Dopamine plays a role in motivation, reward, and movement. Serotonin influences mood, sleep, and appetite. Acetylcholine is involved in memory, learning, and muscle activation. Imbalances in these chemicals can lead to a range of disorders. Too little dopamine contributes to Parkinson's disease. Too little serotonin is linked to depression. Too much glutamate can cause excitotoxicity, damaging neurons. The brain's chemistry is a delicate balance, and small shifts can have profound effects. Plasticity is one of the brain's most remarkable features. It can reorganize itself in response to experience, injury, or learning. When you practice a skill, the neural pathways involved strengthen. When you stop using a skill, those pathways weaken. This is why musicians who train for years develop thickened areas in the brain regions responsible for motor control and auditory processing. It's also why stroke patients can sometimes regain lost functions through rehabilitation. The brain reroutes signals, finding alternate pathways around damaged areas. This adaptability is not infinite. Severe damage can overwhelm the system's capacity to compensate, but within limits, the brain can rewrite its own wiring, adjusting to new demands and challenges throughout life. Memory relies on this plasticity. When you form a memory, synapses between neurons strengthen, making it easier for those neurons to fire together in the future. Repetition reinforces these connections. This is why studying the same material multiple times, spaced out over days, leads to better retention than cramming it all at once. The brain needs time to consolidate memories, a process that occurs largely during sleep. During deep sleep, the hippocampus replays the day's experiences, transferring them from short-term to long-term storage. Without adequate sleep, this consolidation doesn't happen, and memories fade before they're fully formed. Sleep itself is far from passive. The brain remains highly active, cycling through stages with distinct purposes. REM sleep, characterized by rapid eye movements and vivid dreams, is when the brain processes emotions and integrates experiences. Deep non-REM sleep is when physical restoration occurs and memories solidify. Disrupting these stages through sleep deprivation or disorders like sleep apnea impairs cognitive function, emotional regulation, and physical health. The nervous system doesn't just need rest. It requires specific types of rest at specific times. Cutting sleep short isn't just tiring, it's damaging. Stress affects the nervous system in ways both immediate and long-lasting. Acute stress triggers the sympathetic response, flooding the body with adrenaline and cortisol. Heart rate increases, breathing quickens, muscles tense. This is useful in genuine emergencies, but when stress becomes chronic, the system doesn't get a chance to reset. Cortisol levels remain elevated, suppressing immune function, disrupting sleep, and impairing memory. The hippocampus, which relies on a stable environment to function properly, begins to shrink under prolonged stress. Meanwhile, the amygdala, the brain's fear center, becomes hyperactive, making you more reactive to perceived threats. Chronic stress doesn't just feel bad. It rewires the brain in ways that make stress harder to manage, creating a feedback loop that's difficult to break. The senses feed information into the nervous system constantly, but not all of it reaches conscious awareness. Your brain filters aggressively, prioritizing novelty and relevance while ignoring the familiar. This is why you stop noticing the feeling of your clothes on your skin minutes after getting dressed. The sensation is still there, but your brain has decided it's not important. This filtering is essential. Without it, you'd be overwhelmed by the sheer volume of sensory input. But it also means that perception is selective. What you experience as reality is a curated version, shaped by attention, expectation, and past experience. Vision, for instance, is not a direct recording of the world. It's a construction. Light enters the eye, strikes the retina, and is converted into electrical signals. But those signals are incomplete. The brain fills in gaps, smooths over inconsistencies, and makes assumptions based on context. This is why optical illusions work. They exploit the shortcuts your brain uses to make sense of visual information. The image you see is not what's actually there. It's what your brain predicts should be there based on patterns it's learned over a lifetime. Hearing operates similarly. Sound waves vibrate the eardrum, which moves tiny bones in the middle ear, which in turn create waves in the fluid of the inner ear. Hair cells detect these waves and convert them into electrical signals. But the brain doesn't just receive sound, it interprets it, separating speech from noise, music from random tones. It can focus on a single voice in a crowded room, a phenomenon called the cocktail party effect, by filtering out competing sounds. This selective attention is powerful, but it also means you can miss things happening right in front of you if your focus is elsewhere. The nervous system, for all its sophistication, operates within limits. Reaction time can't be infinite. Signal transmission takes time. Processing takes time. Even the fastest responses, like pulling your hand away from a hot surface, require a fraction of a second. This delay is small but real, and in certain situations, it matters. Athletes train to shorten their reaction times not by speeding up their nerves, but by practicing until the response becomes automatic, reducing the need for conscious decision-making. The less thinking involved, the faster the action. Balance is another function that relies on multiple sensory inputs converging in the nervous system. The inner ear detects changes in head position. Vision provides spatial orientation. Proprioceptors in muscles and joints report body position. The brain integrates all of this to maintain equilibrium. When one system fails, the others can compensate, but imperfectly. People with inner ear damage may feel unsteady, especially in the dark when visual cues are limited. Older adults, whose proprioception declines with age, are at higher risk of falls. Balance isn't a single sense, it's a synthesis, and it degrades when any component weakens. Pain itself is not merely a physical event, it's interpretive. The brain assigns meaning to signals traveling from damaged tissue, and that meaning shapes the intensity and quality of what's felt. Two people with identical injuries can report drastically different pain levels. This isn't imagination or exaggeration, it's the nervous system's flexibility at work, modulating signals based on context, expectation, and emotional state. Soldiers wounded in battle sometimes report feeling no pain till hours later when the immediate threat has passed. The nervous system, in moments of crisis, can suppress pain to enable survival. Once safety is restored, the signal comes through. This isn't delay in the injury itself, but in how the brain prioritizes processing under stress. Chronic pain complicates this picture further. When pain persists long after tissue has healed, the nervous system itself may be the problem. Nerves can become sensitized, firing more easily and more often than necessary. The brain's pain pathways can strengthen through repeated activation, making the experience more intense even without ongoing damage. In these cases, the nervous system has learned pain, embedding it into its normal functioning. Treating chronic pain often requires retraining the nervous system, teaching it to quiet the signals that no longer serve a protective function. Techniques like mindfulness, physical therapy, and cognitive behavioral therapy work not by fixing tissue, but by changing how the brain interprets and responds to sensation. Temperature regulation depends on feedback loops coordinated by the nervous system. Thermoreceptors in the skin detect changes in external temperature and send signals to the hypothalamus, the brain's thermostat. If body temperature rises, the hypothalamus triggers sweating and dilates blood vessels near the skin to release heat. If temperature drops, it constricts those vessels and initiates shivering to generate warmth. These responses are automatic, controlled by the autonomic nervous system without conscious input. But the system isn't perfect. Extreme heat or cold can overwhelm it, leading to hyperthermia or hypothermia when the body can no longer maintain a stable internal environment. Fever is a controlled elevation of the body's set point. orchestrated by the immune system in response to infection. The hypothalamus raises the target temperature, and the body responds by generating heat through muscle activity and conserving it by reducing blood flow to the skin. This makes you feel cold even when your temperature is rising, which is why chills accompany fever. The elevated temperature isn't a malfunction, it's a strategy. Many pathogens are sensitive to heat, and immune function improves at slightly higher temperatures. Once the infection is controlled, the set point drops back to normal. Sweating begins, and the fever breaks. The nervous system's ability to adapt is both strength and vulnerability. Neuroplasticity allows recovery from injury, learning of new skills, and adjustment to changing environments. But it also means the system can adapt in harmful ways. Addiction rewires reward pathways, making the brain prioritize substances or behaviors that were once neutral or even aversive. Anxiety disorders can emerge when the amygdala becomes hyper-responsive, interpreting benign stimuli as threats. Depression alters neurotransmitter systems, dampening emotional responses and disrupting motivation. These changes aren't simply psychological. They're physical alterations in brain structure and function, measurable through imaging and chemical analysis. Sleep disorders disrupt the nervous system's ability to regulate rest and wakefulness. Insomnia, whether difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep, often stems from overactive arousal systems. The brain remains in a state of alertness when it should be winding down, leaving the person trapped in wakefulness. Sleep apnea interrupts breathing during sleep, causing repeated brief awakenings that fragment rest even if the person doesn't remember them. Narcolepsy involves dysfunction in the systems that maintain wakefulness, leading to sudden, uncontrollable sleep episodes during the day. Each of these conditions shows how delicate the balance is between sleep and waking states, and how easily it can be disrupted. Dreams remain one of the nervous system's more enigmatic outputs. They occur primarily during rapid eye movement sleep, when brain activity resembles waking patterns, but the body is paralyzed to prevent acting out dream content. The content of dreams can be vivid, bizarre, and emotionally intense, yet most are forgotten within minutes of waking. Theories about their function range from memory consolidation to emotional processing to random neural firing with no inherent meaning. Some researchers suggest dreams allow the brain to simulate scenarios, practicing responses to threats or social situations in a safe environment. Others argue they're simply a byproduct of the brain's attempt to make sense of scattered activity during sleep. Consciousness itself is the nervous system's greatest mystery. How do electrical signals in neurons give rise to subjective experience? Why does it feel like something to see red, hear music, or feel pain? These questions have occupied philosophers and scientists for centuries, and no consensus has emerged. We can map brain activity associated with conscious states, identify regions that seem necessary for awareness, and study how damage to those regions alters experience. But the gap between physical processes and subjective awareness remains unbridged. Some propose consciousness arises from the integration of information across widespread brain networks. Others suggest it's a fundamental property of certain systems, not reducible to simpler components. The hard problem of consciousness persists unanswered. Attention is a limited resource managed by the nervous system. You can't focus on everything at once. The brain selects certain inputs for detailed processing while filtering out the rest. This selective attention allows for depth of focus, but creates blind spots. Inattentional blindness occurs when you fail to notice something in plain sight because your attention is directed elsewhere. The famous experiment where viewers failed to see a person in a gorilla suit walk through a basketball game demonstrates this vividly. The gorilla is clearly visible, but if attention is locked on counting passes, it becomes invisible. The nervous system isn't recording everything, it's constructing a version of reality based on what it deems important in the moment. Multisensory integration happens constantly and mostly unconsciously. The ventriloquist effect, where you perceive sound as coming from a moving mouth rather than its actual source, shows how vision can dominate auditory localization. The McGurk effect demonstrates that visual information about lip movements can change what you hear when watching someone speak. If the audio says one sound, but the lips form another, the brain often splits the difference, hearing something in between. These illusions reveal that perception isn't modular. The senses don't operate independently. They inform and modify each other, and the brain weighs them differently, depending on which is most reliable in a given context. Proprioception, the sense of body position and movement, operates largely outside awareness. You know where your hand is, even with your eyes closed. You can touch your nose with a finger in the dark. This comes from receptors in muscles, tendons, and joints that constantly report position and tension to the brain. Damage to proprioceptive pathways can make movement clumsy and imprecise. People with such damage must rely on vision to guide actions that would normally be automatic. Proprioception also contributes to the sense of body ownership, the feeling that this body is yours. Disruptions in this system can lead to strange experiences where limbs feel alien or detached, as seen in certain neurological conditions. The vestibular system in the inner ear detects head movement and orientation relative to gravity. It's essential for balance and for stabilizing vision during movement. When you turn your head, the vestibular system signals the eyes to move in the opposite direction, keeping the visual field steady. Without this vestibulo-ocular reflex, the world would blur every time you moved. Motion sickness occurs when there's a mismatch between vestibular and visual information. Reading in a moving car creates this conflict. The inner ear detects motion, but the eyes, focused on a stationary page, do not. The brain interprets this contradiction as a sign of toxin ingestion and triggers nausea, an evolutionary response to expel poison. Phantom limb sensations illustrate the nervous system's stubbornness. After amputation, many people continue to feel the missing limb. It may itch, ache, or feel as though it's moving. This occurs because the brain's map of the body doesn't immediately update. The cortical areas that once received input from the limb remain active, generating sensation in the absence of actual signals. Over time, neighboring areas can invade this cortical territory, leading to bizarre sensations where touching the face produces feelings in the phantom hand. These phenomena reveal how deeply the body is represented in the brain, and how that representation can persist even when the body itself has changed. Synesthesia, where one sense triggers another, shows that sensory boundaries aren't absolute. Some people see colors when they hear music or taste shapes when they eat. These cross-activations likely result from unusual connections between sensory areas of the brain. Synesthesia runs in families, suggesting a genetic component, and it's consistent for each individual. A person who sees the letter A as red will always see it that way. Far from being a disorder, synesthesia is simply a different way of experiencing the world, one that highlights the brain's flexibility in wiring sensory systems. The nervous system ages, reaction time slow, sensory acuity declines, balance becomes less reliable. Neurons are lost, and the brain physically shrinks. But cognitive decline isn't inevitable. Mental activity, physical exercise, social engagement, and healthy diet can all support brain health into old age. Neuroplasticity continues, allowing older adults to learn new skills and form new memories. The rate of decline varies widely. Some people maintain sharp cognition into their 90s. Others experience significant impairment much earlier. Genetics play a role, but lifestyle matters too. The brain, like the body, responds to how it's used. Neurodegenerative diseases dismantle the nervous system progressively. Alzheimer's disease destroys memory and reasoning as plaques and tangles accumulate in the brain. Parkinson's disease kills dopamine-producing neurons, leading to tremors, rigidity, and slowed movement. Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis attacks motor neurons, causing paralysis that eventually extends to breathing muscles. Huntington's disease, caused by a genetic mutation, leads to uncontrolled movements and cognitive decline. These conditions are devastating, and for most, treatment options remain limited. Research continues, but the complexity of the nervous system makes intervention difficult. Each disease involves multiple pathways, widespread degeneration, and changes that begin years before symptoms appear. Mental health conditions also reflect nervous system dysfunction. Depression isn't simply sadness. It involves changes in neurotransmitter systems, brain structure, and neural connectivity. Schizophrenia disrupts perception and thought, with hallucinations and delusions arising from altered dopamine signaling and abnormal brain development. Bipolar disorder swings between manic and depressive states, driven by dysregulation in mood circuits. These are not character flaws or failures of willpower. They're medical conditions rooted in biology, and they respond to treatment, whether medication, therapy, or both. Stigma persists, but understanding the nervous system's role helps shift the conversation toward compassion and evidence-based care. The gut-brain axis reveals that the nervous system extends beyond the skull and spine. The enteric nervous system, embedded in the walls of the digestive tract, contains hundreds of millions of neurons. It can operate independently, controlling digestion without input from the brain, but communication flows in both directions. The gut sends signals to the brain via the vagus nerve, influencing mood and behavior. Gut bacteria, the microbiome, produce neurotransmitters and other molecules that affect brain function. This explains why gastrointestinal distress often accompanies anxiety, and why probiotics are being studied for their potential mental health benefits. Stress impacts the nervous system profoundly and persistently. Chronic stress keeps the body in a state of heightened alert, with elevated cortisol levels that can damage the hippocampus and impair memory. It disrupts sleep, weakens immune function, and increases risk for cardiovascular disease. The nervous system, designed for short bursts of stress response, struggles under prolonged activation. Learning to manage stress through relaxation techniques, exercise, and social support can mitigate these effects. The nervous system is resilient, but it needs recovery time to function optimally. Human connection soothes the nervous system in ways few other things can. Social isolation activates stress responses similar to physical pain. Loneliness triggers inflammation and weakens immunity. Conversely, supportive relationships buffer against stress, promote healing, and extend lifespan. Touch, conversation, laughter all engage the nervous system in ways that foster calm and well-being. The brain is fundamentally social, wired to seek connection and suffer in its absence. Ultimately, the nervous system is what makes experience possible. Every thought, sensation, emotion, and action flows through it. Understanding how it works doesn't diminish the richness of life. If anything, it deepens appreciation for the complexity underlying each moment of awareness. The brain doesn't wait for permission to choose. It selects, decides, and commits before the conscious mind catches up. Studies using electroencephalography and functional MRI show neural signatures of decisions emerging up to 10 seconds before participants report awareness of their choice. This doesn't dissolve the concept of free will entirely, but it reframes it. What feels like deliberate choice may be the mind narrating decisions already set in motion by unconscious processes. The implications ripple outward. If the brain initiates action before awareness, then consciousness might serve less as commander and more as observer, constructing coherent stories about choices made beneath the surface. This doesn't render decisions meaningless. The unconscious draws on values, experiences, and learned patterns accumulated over a lifetime. It's still you making the choice, just not the part of you that speaks in sentences. Dreams occupy a strange territory between reality and imagination. During REM sleep, the brain generates vivid experiences, complete with emotions, narratives, and sensory detail, all while the body lies paralyzed to prevent physical enactment. Some people experience lucid dreaming, becoming aware within the dream itself. This awareness can allow control over the dream's direction, transforming passive observation into active participation. Training for lucid dreaming involves techniques like reality testing, asking throughout the day whether you're dreaming, and keeping detailed dream journals. Over time, these habits can carry into sleep, triggering awareness when something impossible occurs. For those who achieve it, lucid dreaming becomes a laboratory of the mind, a space where the usual constraints of physics and logic dissolve. But lucid dreams reveal something deeper. They demonstrate the brain's capacity to create entire worlds, populated with characters, landscapes, and events that feel utterly real. The architecture is borrowed from memory, stitched together with imagination, and animated by neural activity. In this state, You are simultaneously the dreamer and the dream, the audience and the stage. Language shapes thought in ways often invisible to speakers. The words available in a language can influence how its speakers perceive time, color, space, and even causality. Some languages lack distinct words for blue and green, and speakers of those languages show different patterns of color discrimination. Languages that encode direction into everyday speech lead speakers to maintain constant spatial awareness, knowing instinctively which way is north. This isn't linguistic determinism, the idea that language entirely controls thought, but it suggests that language acts as a lens, subtly shaping attention and categorization. Bilingual individuals often report feeling different when speaking different languages, as if each language activates a distinct set of associations and perspectives. The structure of a language can emphasize or obscure certain distinctions, making some ideas easier to express and others more difficult. Memory is not a recording. It's a reconstruction. Every time you recall an event, the brain rebuilds it from fragments, filling gaps with assumptions, inferences, and details borrowed from other experiences. This process makes memory flexible and adaptive, but also vulnerable to distortion. False memories can be implanted through suggestion, leading people to vividly remember events that never occurred. In studies, researchers have convinced participants they were lost in a shopping mall as children, met Bugs Bunny at Disneyland, or witnessed events they only heard about later. These false memories feel indistinguishable from real ones, complete with sensory details and emotional weight. The malleability of memory has profound implications for eyewitness testimony, personal identity, and the stories we tell about our lives. Yet this fluidity also allows memory to serve the present. By updating and integrating past experiences, the brain keeps memories relevant, adjusting them to fit new contexts and insights. Memories aren't meant to be perfect archives. They're tools for navigating the future, shaped by the needs of the present moment. Social connection soothes the nervous system in measurable ways. Physical touch, eye contact, and even the presence of trusted others can reduce heart rate, lower cortisol, and activate parasympathetic responses that promote calm. Infants deprived of touch show delayed development and heightened stress responses, while adults in isolation experience increased inflammation and weakened immunity. The polyvagal theory suggests that the nervous system evolved not just for fight or flight, but for social engagement. The ventral vagal complex supports facial expression, vocalization, and the ability to tune into others' emotional states. When this system is active, the body feels safe, allowing rest, digestion, and connection to occur. Social bonds literally regulate physiology, buffering against stress and supporting resilience. Loneliness, then, isn't merely an emotional state. It's a biological stressor, signaling to the brain that resources and protection are scarce. Chronic loneliness activates the same neural pathways as physical pain, highlighting the deep evolutionary roots of our need for connection. Humans are fundamentally social creatures, that the nervous system reflects that truth in every heartbeat. Attention is a limited resource, and the brain constantly filters incoming information, deciding what deserves focus and what can be ignored. This selective attention allows concentration but also creates blind spots. The phenomenon of inattentional blindness demonstrates this starkly. When focused on a task, people can fail to notice unexpected stimuli, even highly visible ones. In one famous study, participants counting basketball passes failed to see a person in a gorilla suit walk through the scene. The gorilla was on screen for several seconds, yet roughly half of viewers missed it entirely. This isn't a failure of vision, but of attention. The brain, focused on counting, filtered out irrelevant information, including a large, conspicuous animal. This filtering happens constantly, shaping perception in ways we rarely notice. The world we experience is not objective reality, but a curated selection, tailored by the brain's priorities. Recognizing this can be humbling. How much passes unnoticed, filtered out by the demands of the moment? Emotions are embodied. They don't exist solely in the mind, but manifest throughout the body in patterns of muscle tension, breathing, heart rate, and gut activity. The James Lange theory of emotion suggests that physiological changes precede emotional experience. You don't run because you're afraid. You're afraid because you run. While oversimplified, this perspective highlights the deep connection between body and emotion. Altering physical state through posture, breathing, or movement can shift emotional experience. Slow, deep breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, promoting calm. Standing tall can increase feelings of confidence. The body isn't just a vessel for emotion. It's an active participant in generating it. This bidirectional relationship means emotional regulation can work from either direction. Changing thoughts can change feelings, but so can changing breath, posture, or physical activity. The mind and body are not separate domains, but interwoven systems, each influencing the other in constant dialogue. Creativity often emerges from constraint. When resources are limited or rules are imposed, the brain is forced to explore unconventional solutions. Total freedom can paradoxically hinder creativity by overwhelming choice, while constraints focus attention and encourage innovation within boundaries. Artists often impose limitations using specific color palettes, time restrictions, or formal structures to guide their work. Writers may adopt constraints like writing without a particular letter or adhering to strict meter. These limitations don't stifle creativity. They channel it, forcing the mind to navigate around obstacles and discover unexpected paths. This principle extends beyond art. In problem solving, constraints can clarify goals and eliminate distractions, directing cognitive resources toward the most promising solutions. The brain, when challenged, often surprises with ingenuity, born not from abundance, but from scarcity. The sense of self is constructed, not given. It arises from the brain integrating sensory input, memory, and internal models of the body and environment. This construction is so seamless that it feels automatic, but it can be disrupted. Out-of-body experiences, depersonalization, and certain neurological conditions reveal that selfhood is an achievement of the brain, not a fundamental fact. Experiments using virtual reality and multisensory manipulation can induce the rubber hand illusion, where people experience a fake hand as part of their own body. The brain, receiving synchronized visual and tactile input, incorporates the rubber hand into its body schema. This demonstrates the flexibility of self-perception and the brain's reliance on sensory coherence to define boundaries. The self, then, is less a fixed entity and more a process, continuously updated and maintained by neural activity. Consciousness of self is a story the brain tells, woven from fragments of sensation, memory, and prediction, held together by the illusion of continuity. Habits form through repetition, embedding behaviors into automatic routines that require minimal conscious effort. The basal ganglia, deep brain structures involved in motor control and learning, play a central role in habit formation. As behaviors are repeated, neural pathways strengthen and actions become increasingly automatic. This automation is efficient, freeing cognitive resources for other tasks. But it also makes habits difficult to break. Once established, habitual behaviors can persist even when no longer beneficial, triggered by environmental cues without conscious intention. The brain defaults to the familiar, following the path of least resistance. Changing habits requires conscious intervention, disrupting the cue routine reward loop that sustains them. Replacing old routines with new ones, altering environmental triggers, and building awareness of automatic behaviors can gradually reshape neural pathways. Habit change is possible, but it demands persistence and patience as the brain slowly adapts to new patterns. Sleep is not uniform. It cycles through stages, each serving distinct functions. Non-REM sleep supports memory consolidation, physical restoration, and metabolic regulation. REM sleep, characterized by rapid eye movements and vivid dreaming, appears crucial for emotional processing and creative problem solving. During sleep, the brain doesn't rest passively. It reorganizes information, strengthens important memories, and weakens irrelevant ones. The glymphatic system, active primarily during sleep, clears metabolic waste from the brain, including proteins associated with Alzheimer's disease. Sleep deprivation impairs all these processes, leading to cognitive decline, emotional instability, and increased disease risk. The modern world often treats sleep as optional, something to sacrifice for productivity. But the brain requires sleep to function optimally. Chronic sleep loss accumulates as sleep debt, with consequences that extend far beyond fatigue, affecting judgment, health, and longevity. Music engages the brain uniquely, activating widespread networks involved in auditory processing, emotion, memory, and motor control. Listening to music can synchronize neural activity across regions, creating coherent patterns that support emotional and cognitive responses. Playing music strengthens connections between motor and auditory areas, enhancing coordination and timing. Music therapy leverages these effects, using rhythm, melody, and harmony to support rehabilitation after stroke, manage pain, and improve mood in depression. Familiar songs can access memories otherwise lost to dementia, momentarily restoring connection and identity. Music's power lies in its ability to bypass damaged pathways and engage the brain through alternative routes. The emotional resonance of music remains partially mysterious. Why certain chord progressions evoke sadness or joy, why rhythm compels movement, and why melodies linger in memory long after the sound fades. Music speaks a language the brain understands instinctively, one that predates words and reaches depths that language cannot. Curiosity drives learning, motivating exploration and discovery. When curiosity is piqued, the brain releases dopamine, creating a state of heightened attention and receptivity. Information encountered in this state is encoded more deeply, making curiosity not just a motivator, but a learning enhancer. The brain's reward system responds to novelty and uncertainty, encouraging investigation of the unknown. This drive likely evolved to promote exploration, helping ancestors discover new resources and adapt to changing environments. In modern contexts, curiosity supports intellectual growth, creativity, and adaptability. Cultivating curiosity involves embracing uncertainty and approaching the unknown with openness rather than anxiety. Questions rather than answers sustain engagement and deepen understanding. The most profound learning often begins not with certainty, but with wondering. Human cognition is deeply social. The brain evolved in group contexts, and many of its capacities, from language to theory of mind, support social interaction. We read faces, infer intentions, and navigate complex social hierarchies with remarkable skill, often unconsciously. Mirror neurons, discovered in the premotor cortex, fire both when performing an action and when observing another perform it. This neural mirroring may underlie empathy, imitation, and social learning, allowing us to understand others by simulating their experiences internally. Social cognition shapes identity, values, and behavior. We are influenced by those around us often more than we realize, but this social nature also enables cooperation, culture, and the transmission of knowledge across generations, making humans uniquely capable of collective achievement. Human nature continues unfolding, shaped by biology, culture, and experience. The mind continues its work across generations, transmitting culture through language, story, and shared practice. Each generation inherits not only genes, but also accumulated knowledge, values, and technologies. This cultural evolution operates faster than biological evolution, allowing rapid adaptation to new challenges. Children learn by observing adults, absorbing not just explicit instructions, but implicit norms and assumptions. This social learning makes humans uniquely capable of building on the achievements of predecessors, creating a ratchet effect where knowledge accumulates over time rather than resetting with each generation. Language stands as perhaps the most remarkable product of this process. It allows abstract thought, complex planning, and the transmission of ideas across time and space. Words carry meaning, but also history, each term shaped by countless speakers who came before. The brain's language centers Broca's area for production and Wernicke's area for comprehension coordinate to generate and interpret the endless combinations of sounds and symbols we call speech. Language doesn't just describe reality, it shapes how we perceive it, influencing what we notice, remember, and value. Different languages carve up experience in distinct ways. Some languages have dozens of words for snow, while others have a single term. Some mark time explicitly in every verb, while others leave temporal context implicit. These linguistic differences can subtly influence thought, a possibility explored in the linguistic relativity hypothesis. While language doesn't determine thought entirely, it provides the scaffolding on which much thinking occurs, making certain ideas easier to express and therefore more likely to be considered. The brain's remarkable plasticity extends to language learning. Children acquire languages with apparent effortlessness, their brains primed to extract grammatical patterns from the speech around them. This critical period for language acquisition gradually closes, though adults can still learn new languages with sufficient motivation and practice. The process becomes more effortful, requiring conscious attention to patterns that children absorb unconsciously. Yet even adult language learning reshapes the brain, creating new neural pathways and enhancing cognitive flexibility. Bilingualism offers cognitive advantages beyond communication. People who speak multiple languages show enhanced executive function, better attention control, and delayed onset of dementia symptoms. The constant practice of inhibiting one language while using another strengthens mental control systems, benefits that extend beyond language itself. The bilingual brain maintains both languages simultaneously, even when using only one, creating a kind of ongoing mental exercise that keeps cognitive systems sharp. Narrative thinking shapes human understanding in profound ways. We naturally organize experience into stories with beginnings, middles, and ends, protagonists and obstacles, causes and effects. This narrative structure helps make sense of the chaos of raw experience, creating coherence and meaning. Personal identity itself takes narrative form. We construct life stories that explain who we are, where we've been, and where we're going. These stories aren't fixed recordings, but evolving interpretations, revised as new experiences occur and perspectives shift. Stories also bind communities together. Shared narratives, whether historical accounts, religious texts, or cultural myths, create common ground and collective identity. They transmit values, warn of dangers, and inspire action. The human appetite for story appears universal, evident in cave paintings, oral traditions, written literature, and modern media. Stories engage the brain differently than abstract information, activating sensory and motor areas as if experiencing events firsthand. This neural simulation may explain why stories prove so memorable and persuasive, why they move us emotionally and shape behavior more effectively than dry facts. Creativity emerges from the brain's ability to combine existing elements in novel ways. The creative process often involves divergent thinking, generating multiple possible solutions, followed by convergent thinking, selecting and refining the most promising ideas. Different brain networks support these phases. Default mode network activity, associated with mind-wandering and spontaneous thought, appears important for initial idea generation. Executive control networks then evaluate and develop these ideas. The interplay between spontaneous generation and deliberate refinement characterizes creative work across domains, from art to science to everyday problem solving. Creative insights often arrive unexpectedly during walks, showers, or moments of relaxation. This phenomenon reflects the brain's background processing. When conscious attention releases a problem, unconscious processes continue working, making connections that weren't apparent during focused effort. The sudden flash of insight represents these unconscious connections breaking through to awareness. This explains why deliberately trying to force creativity often backfires. while stepping back and allowing the mind to wander can prove more productive. Environmental factors significantly influence creativity. Novel experiences, exposure to diverse ideas, and freedom from rigid constraints all support creative thinking. Conversely, stress, time pressure, and fear of judgment can inhibit creativity, narrowing focus and reinforcing habitual patterns. Creative environments balance structure with flexibility, providing resources and guidance while allowing experimentation and risk-taking. The most creative individuals often work at the intersection of multiple fields, drawing connections others miss because they possess knowledge from domains that rarely interact. Expertise develops through deliberate practice, focused effort, aimed at improving specific aspects of performance. Simply repeating tasks isn't enough. Effective practice involves identifying weaknesses, seeking feedback, and pushing beyond current capabilities. This process reshapes the brain, making expert performance increasingly automatic and freeing attention for higher-level aspects of the task. Expert musicians, athletes, and chess players show distinctive brain patterns reflecting years of specialized training. Their brains process domain-relevant information more efficiently, recognizing patterns instantly that novices must consciously analyze. However, expertise carries limitations. Highly trained patterns can become rigid, making it difficult to adapt when circumstances change. Experts sometimes miss simple solutions because they approach problems through the lens of their specialized knowledge. This suggests the value of maintaining beginner's mind, the willingness to see situations freshly without preconceptions. The most effective problem solvers combine deep expertise with cognitive flexibility, knowing when to apply established methods and when to think outside their usual frameworks. Wisdom differs from intelligence or expertise. It involves not just knowing facts or solving problems, but understanding human nature, recognizing context, and making sound judgments in complex situations. Wisdom integrates cognitive abilities with emotional regulation, perspective taking, and acceptance of uncertainty. Research suggests wisdom develops through life experience, particularly experiences that challenge assumptions and require adapting to change. Reflecting on experience, considering multiple perspectives, and recognizing the limits of one's knowledge all contribute to wisdom's development. Cultural wisdom traditions emphasize practices like meditation, contemplation, and dialogue with others. These practices support the cognitive and emotional capacities underlying wisdom. Meditation enhances attention regulation and emotional awareness. Contemplation encourages reflection on values and meaning. Dialogue exposes us to different viewpoints, preventing the insularity that breeds rigid thinking. While wisdom may increase with age, it's not automatic. Some people grow wiser through experience, while others simply grow older, repeating the same patterns without learning from them. The self, that sense of being a continuous person across time, emerges from brain processes yet feels irreducible to them. Neuroscience can identify regions involved in self-reflection, the medial prefrontal cortex, and distinguish self from other. But the subjective experience of selfhood remains mysterious. Philosophical traditions have long questioned whether a unified self truly exists, or whether it's a convenient fiction the mind constructs. Buddhist psychology, for instance, teaches that careful introspection reveals no permanent self, only a stream of changing mental events that the mind mistakes for a stable entity. Western psychology has explored the multiplicity of self, recognizing that people contain various aspects or sub-personalities that can conflict. The person at work may differ markedly from the person at home or with friends. Under stress, different aspects of self may take control. This multiplicity doesn't indicate pathology, but reflects the mind's complexity and context sensitivity. Integration of these various aspects, maintaining coherence while acknowledging internal diversity, marks psychological maturity. Self-awareness, the ability to reflect on one's own mental states, appears uniquely developed in humans. This metacognition, thinking about thinking, enables planning, self-regulation, and learning from experience. Yet self-awareness brings challenges. Excessive self-focus can fuel anxiety and depression. The capacity to imagine alternative versions of oneself, to dwell on past mistakes or worry about future failures, creates suffering unknown to creatures living purely in the present. The goal isn't eliminating self-awareness, but developing a balanced relationship with it, using reflection constructively while avoiding rumination's traps. Oh, consciousness itself remains one of science's deepest puzzles. Why does subjective experience exist at all? Why doesn't information processing occur in the dark without any inner field to it? This hard problem of consciousness has generated numerous theories, but no consensus. Some propose that consciousness emerges from specific types of information integration in the brain. Others suggest it's a fundamental feature of reality, present in varying degrees throughout nature. Still others argue the question itself rests on confusion, that consciousness will dissolve as a mystery once we fully understand brain function. Whatever consciousness ultimately is, its contents vary dramatically. Ordinary waking consciousness represents just one mode. Dreams present another, with their own logic and feel. Meditative states can produce experiences of expanded awareness or dissolving boundaries between self and world. Psychedelic states alter consciousness profoundly, sometimes generating experiences described as mystical or transcendent. These altered states reveal consciousness's flexibility and raise questions about which state, if any, reveals reality most accurately. Perhaps each offers a different perspective on the same underlying reality, like views of a landscape from different vantage points. The relationship between mind and brain continues generating philosophical debate. Materialism holds that mental states are identical to brain states, that consciousness arises from and reduces to physical processes. Dualism maintains that mind and matter are fundamentally distinct, that subjective experience can't be reduced to neurons firing. Other positions occupy middle ground, suggesting emergence where mental properties arise from but aren't reducible to physical ones, or panpsychism, where consciousness is fundamental and physical processes are how it manifests. These aren't merely abstract debates. They carry implications for questions of free will, moral responsibility, and what happens when the brain ceases functioning. Human nature remains wonderfully strange, a mystery we inhabit without fully understanding. We are shaped not only by biology, but by culture, language, and the accumulated wisdom of generations. The human mind develops within a social context, absorbing norms, values, and frameworks for understanding reality long before critical thinking emerges. This cultural inheritance provides shortcuts for navigating complexity, but also embeds biases and assumptions that may go unexamined for a lifetime. The stories we tell ourselves about who we are, where we came from, and what matters are rarely authored from scratch. They're assembled from cultural fragments, family narratives, and shared myths that predate our birth. Language itself structures thought in ways we seldom notice. Different languages carve up the world differently, emphasizing distinctions their speakers find meaningful while glossing over others. Some languages lack future tense, encouraging speakers to think about upcoming events as if they were present. Others embed spatial orientation into every sentence, requiring constant awareness of cardinal directions. These structural differences don't determine thought absolutely, but they do nudge perception and memory in subtle directions. The words available to describe an experience shape how vividly it's remembered and how easily it's communicated to others. Cognitive biases are systematic patterns of deviation from rationality in judgment. Dozens have been identified, from confirmation bias, which favors information that supports existing beliefs, to availability heuristic, which overweights easily recalled examples. These mental shortcuts evolved to help us make quick decisions with limited information, but in modern contexts, they can lead us astray. Understanding these biases doesn't eliminate them, but it creates space for second thoughts, for questioning initial impressions, for seeking out disconfirming evidence. The paradox of choice illustrates how more options can sometimes reduce satisfaction rather than enhance it. When faced with dozens of similar products, people often feel paralyzed, struggle to commit, and experience more regret afterward, wondering if a different choice would have been better. A moderate number of options feels empowering, but beyond a certain threshold, choice becomes burden. This pattern appears in domains from consumer goods to romantic partners to career paths. The modern world offers unprecedented freedom, yet that freedom can generate anxiety and dissatisfaction when every path not taken haunts the one chosen. Cognitive dissonance describes the mental discomfort experienced when holding contradictory beliefs or when behavior conflicts with values. Rather than tolerating this tension, the mind tends to resolve it by changing beliefs, justifying behavior, or minimizing the contradiction's significance. Someone who smokes despite knowing health risks might downplay the danger, emphasize exceptions, or convince themselves they'll quit soon. This drive for internal consistency can lead to self-deception, but it also motivates genuine change when the discomfort becomes unbearable. The fundamental attribution error leads us to overemphasize personality and underemphasize situation when explaining others' behavior. If someone cuts us off in traffic, we assume they're rude rather than rushing to an emergency. If a student performs poorly, we question their intelligence rather than considering what might be happening in their life. Yet when explaining our own behavior, we readily invoke circumstances, stress, and external factors. This asymmetry creates misunderstanding and conflict making it harder to extend the empathy we'd want for ourselves. Emotional regulation, the ability to influence which emotions we experience and how we express them, develops gradually through childhood and continues evolving throughout life. Strategies range from situation selection, avoiding contexts that trigger difficult emotions, to cognitive reappraisal, reinterpreting situations to change their emotional impact. Suppression, simply trying not to show what's felt, tends to backfire, increasing physiological stress while failing to reduce the emotion itself. Healthier approaches involve acknowledging feelings without being controlled by them, creating distance through mindfulness or perspective taking. Resilience, the capacity to recover from difficulties, isn't a fixed trait, but a dynamic process. Some people seem naturally resilient, bouncing back from setbacks with enviable ease. Others develop resilience through experience, learning from hardship that they can endure more than they imagined. Factors that support resilience include strong relationships, a sense of purpose, realistic optimism, and the ability to accept what cannot be changed while taking action where possible. Resilience doesn't mean never struggling or suffering. It means continuing to move forward even when progress feels impossible. The hedonic treadmill describes our tendency to return to a relatively stable level of happiness, despite major positive or negative events. Lottery winners, after initial euphoria, typically return to baseline happiness within months. Similarly, people who experience devastating losses eventually adapt, finding sources of meaning and moments of joy again. This adaptation can feel frustrating when good fortune fails to bring lasting contentment, but it's also protective, preventing permanent despair. The pattern suggests that sustainable well-being comes less from circumstances than from how we relate to them. Flow states, moments of complete absorption where time seems to vanish and self-consciousness dissolves, occur when challenge and skill are perfectly balanced. Too little challenge breeds boredom. Too much creates anxiety. But in that narrow channel between, people report deep satisfaction and peak performance. Flow can emerge during sports, creative work, conversation, or any activity that engages full attention without overwhelming capacity. These experiences are intrinsically rewarding, valued not for what they produce, but for the quality of consciousness they generate. The stories we tell about our lives shape who we become. Narrative identity, the internalized life story we construct, influences how we interpret new experiences and what futures seem possible. Someone who narrates their life as a story of overcoming obstacles approaches setbacks differently than someone whose story centers on victimhood or failure. These narratives aren't simply true or false. They're frameworks that organize memory selectively, emphasizing certain events while minimizing others. Therapy often involves helping people revise their narratives, finding new meaning in old experiences, or recognizing patterns they hadn't seen before. Mindfulness, the practice of present moment awareness without judgment, has moved from Buddhist meditation traditions into mainstream psychology and medicine. Research shows it can reduce anxiety, improve attention, and increase emotional regulation. The practice involves noticing thoughts and sensations as they arise without getting caught in them, observing the mind's habitual patterns with gentle curiosity. This metacognitive awareness creates space between stimulus and response, allowing choice where before there was only reaction. The relationship between thinking and feeling proves more complex than simple opposition. Emotions carry information about what matters to us, what feels threatening or promising, what aligns with our values. Ignoring emotional input in favor of pure logic often leads to poor decisions because it excludes crucial data about preferences and priorities. Yet being overwhelmed by emotion without cognitive input leads to impulsive choices that serve immediate feeling at the expense of long-term goals. Wisdom integrates both, using emotion as compass while tempering it with reflection. Attachment styles, formed in early relationships with caregivers, influence how people approach intimacy throughout life. Secure attachment, developed when caregivers are consistently responsive, supports confidence in relationships and comfort with both closeness and independence. Anxious attachment, arising from inconsistent care, creates fear of abandonment and excessive need for reassurance. Avoidant attachment, formed when caregivers are dismissive or rejecting, leads to discomfort with intimacy and excessive self-reliance. These patterns aren't destiny. Awareness and deliberate effort can shift them, and secure relationships in adulthood can provide corrective experiences that gradually reshape working models of connection. The paradox of introspection is that looking inward doesn't always reveal truth. We often don't know why we feel what we feel or want what we want. When asked to explain preferences or decisions, people confidently provide reasons that may have little to do with actual causes. The conscious mind, receiving limited information from unconscious processes, fills in gaps with plausible-sounding explanations. This confabulation isn't dishonest. It's the mind doing what it does, creating coherent narratives from incomplete data. Theory of mind, the ability to attribute mental states to others, emerges in early childhood and continues developing through adolescence. It allows us to recognize that others have beliefs, desires, and perspectives different from our own. This capacity underlies empathy, deception, cooperation, and teaching. Deficits in theory of mind appear in certain conditions, making social interaction challenging when others' thoughts and feelings remain opaque. But even with intact theory of mind, we often default to assuming others think and feel as we do, a kind of psychological projection that creates misunderstanding. The seeking system, a fundamental motivational circuit in the brain, drives exploration and pursuit of goals. This system generates the feeling of wanting, distinct from the pleasure of getting. It's what keeps us scrolling social media, checking email, pursuing the next accomplishment. Activation of this system feels purposeful and energizing, but it can become compulsive when hijacked by addictive substances or behaviors that trigger dopamine release without genuine satisfaction. Understanding this distinction between wanting and liking helps explain why achieving goals sometimes feels anticlimactic, while the chase felt electrifying. Gratitude, when genuinely felt rather than performed, shifts attention toward what's present rather than what's missing. Regular gratitude practice, whether through journaling or simple reflection, correlates with increased well-being, stronger relationships, and better physical health. The mechanism may involve breaking cycles of rumination, fostering appreciation for others, or simply training attention toward positive aspects of experience that otherwise go unnoticed. Gratitude doesn't deny difficulty or suffering. It coexists with them, finding threads of value even in challenging circumstances. The human mind remains wonderfully strange, a phenomenon that studies itself. Consciousness, examining consciousness. Thought, analyzing thought. Every answer generates new questions. Every explanation reveals new mysteries. We've mapped neural circuits, yet can't fully explain how experience arises from them. We've cataloged cognitive biases, yet continue falling prey to them. We've developed sophisticated theories of emotion, yet struggle to manage our own feelings. This gap between understanding and mastery isn't failure, it's the human condition, the paradox of being both subject and object of inquiry, both the question and the answer, forever seeking to know the knower. The body's story doesn't end with understanding. It continues with every breath, every heartbeat, every unconscious adjustment happening right now as you read these words. Your pupils dilate and contract based on the light hitting this page. Your postural muscles make micro corrections to keep you upright or comfortable. Your immune system patrols for threats you'll never know existed. All of this unfolds without permission, without awareness, the machinery humming along beneath the surface of consciousness. What we've explored here barely scratches the surface. Each system we've touched contains depths we haven't plumbed, interactions we haven't mapped, mysteries we haven't solved. The cardiovascular system's relationship with the lymphatic network, the gut microbiome's influence on brain chemistry, the intricate feedback loops between hormones and behavior, all of these warrant their own deep investigations. The body is not a collection of separate systems, but a unified whole, each part influencing every other in ways both obvious and subtle. Consider what it means that your experiences physically reshape your brain. The conversations you have, the books you read, the skills you practice, all of these leave structural traces in neural tissue. You are, quite literally, not the same person you were last year, not just metaphorically, but biologically. Your neurons have formed new connections, pruned old ones, adjusted the strength of thousands of synapses based on what you've encountered and how you've responded. The architecture of your mind is under constant renovation, responding to the life you're living. This plasticity extends beyond the brain. Bones remodel themselves along lines of stress. Muscles adapt to the demands placed on them. Even the microbiome shifts based on diet and environment. The body is not static machinery, but living tissue that responds, adapts, and changes. This capacity for change means that how you live matters, not just for your immediate experience, but for the fundamental structure of your biology. The choices made today shape the capabilities available tomorrow. Yet for all this adaptability, the body has limits. Aging is real. Systems degrade. Cells accumulate damage. Telomeres shorten with each division. Collagen loses elasticity. Bone density declines. These changes are gradual but inexorable, a reminder that the body, for all its resilience, is mortal. Understanding physiology doesn't grant immortality. It only reveals the mechanics of the clock that's been ticking since conception. But within those limits, there's remarkable room for variation. Two people of the same age can show vastly different levels of function depending on how they've lived. The person who stayed active, who challenged their brain with new learning, who maintained social connections and managed stress, that person's body often looks biologically younger than someone who lived more passively. Chronological age and biological age diverge based on accumulated choices, a testament to the body's responsiveness to how it's treated. Pain, that unwelcome companion, makes more sense in the context of physiology. It's not punishment or malfunction, at least not primarily. It's information, a signal that something needs attention. The problem is that the signal can outlast its usefulness, that the nervous system can get stuck broadcasting warnings long after the threat has passed. Chronic pain reveals the system's vulnerability to false loops, to patterns that perpetuate themselves beyond their purpose. Understanding this doesn't eliminate suffering, but it can reframe it, shifting pain from incomprehensible torment to a problem with biological roots, one that can be addressed through multiple pathways. The immune system's dual nature, protecting against genuine threats while sometimes attacking the body itself, reflects a broader pattern. Many physiological systems operate on principles of balance, walking lines between opposing dangers. Blood must clot to prevent fatal bleeding, but not so readily that clots form spontaneously. The immune system must respond aggressively to pathogens, but not so aggressively that it destroys healthy tissue. Blood pressure must be high enough to perfuse distant tissues, but not so high that it damages vessel walls. These balancing acts happen constantly, mostly successfully, occasionally failing in ways that produce disease. The interconnection between systems means that problems rarely remain isolated. Chronic stress affects not just mood, but immune function, cardiovascular health, digestive efficiency, and cognitive performance. A disrupted microbiome influences not just digestion, but inflammation, mood, and even neurological function through the gut-brain axis. This web of connections means that improving health in one area often creates positive ripples elsewhere. Exercise benefits not just muscles and cardiovascular fitness, but also brain function, immune response, and emotional regulation. The body's integration makes it vulnerable to cascading problems, but also responsive to broad interventions. Sleep emerges as perhaps the most undervalued physiological process. During those hours of apparent inactivity, the brain consolidates memories. The glymphatic system clears metabolic waste. Growth hormone supports tissue repair, and the immune system ramps up its defenses. Chronic sleep deprivation undermines all of these processes, creating a debt that accumulates silently until it manifests as cognitive decline, weakened immunity, metabolic dysfunction, or mood disorders. The modern tendency to sacrifice sleep for productivity is physiologically illiterate, trading short-term gains for long-term degradation. Breathing, that automatic rhythm we rarely notice, offers a unique bridge between conscious and unconscious control. You can deliberately alter your breathing using it to influence heart rate, blood pressure, and nervous system state. Slow, deep breathing activates the parasympathetic system, promoting calm. Rapid breathing triggers sympathetic arousal, preparing for action. This voluntary access to autonomic function makes breath a powerful tool, one that meditation traditions have exploited for millennia, and that contemporary research continues to validate. The senses, those windows through which reality enters, are not passive receivers, but active interpreters. The brain constructs experience from fragmentary input, filling gaps, smoothing inconsistencies, and creating the seamless perception we mistake for direct access to the world. This construction process usually serves us well, but it can be fooled, as optical illusions and sensory mismatches demonstrate. We don't experience reality as it is. We experience the brain's best guess about reality based on prior expectations and current input. This interpretive layer means that changing expectations can literally change experience, a principal underlying phenomena, from placebo effects to the influence of mindset on performance. The body's capacity for healing deserves recognition. Cut skin knits itself back together. Broken bones fuse. The liver regenerates lost tissue. White blood cells hunt down and destroy invaders. These repair processes happen automatically, orchestrated by systems evolved over millions of years. Medical intervention can support healing, remove obstacles, or address complications. But the actual work of repair is done by the body itself. This self-healing capacity has limits, boundaries beyond which damage becomes permanent or incompatible with life. But within those boundaries, the body's drive to restore integrity is remarkable. Hormones, those chemical messengers traveling through the bloodstream, coordinate responses across vast distances within the body. A threat perceived by the brain triggers adrenal release of cortisol and adrenaline, which in turn affect heart rate, blood pressure, glucose availability, immune function, and digestion. A single signal propagates through multiple systems, preparing the entire organism for challenge. This hormonal coordination allows unified responses to complex situations. But it also means that chronic activation of stress hormones affects the whole body, not just the nervous system. The endocrine system's reach is total. The digestive system's complexity often goes unappreciated until it malfunctions. That 30-foot tube processes everything you eat, breaking it down into components small enough to absorb, defending against pathogens, hosting trillions of beneficial bacteria, and communicating with the brain through neural and chemical pathways. The gut has been called the second brain, and while that's somewhat metaphorical, the enteric nervous system does operate with considerable autonomy, managing digestion without constant input from the central nervous system. The gut-brain axis means that digestive health influences mood and cognition, while stress and emotion affect digestive function. The separation between body and mind proves increasingly difficult to maintain. The skeleton, that rigid framework we build our image of the body around, is alive and active. Bones aren't inert scaffolding, but living tissue that constantly remodels itself, serves as a mineral bank, and manufactures blood cells. The architectural principles evident in bone structure, the lattice of trabecular bone providing strength with minimal weight, the cortical shell resisting external forces, these reflect evolution's solution to the problem of creating a mobile framework strong enough to support the body's mass, while light enough to move efficiently. Muscles, those engines of movement, demonstrate the principle that structure follows function. The arrangement of actin and myosin filaments, the organization of fibers within muscles, the attachment points of tendons on bones, all of this reflects mechanical requirements. Yet muscles are not simple machines. They adapt to use, growing stronger when challenged, atrophying when idle. They communicate with the nervous system through constant feedback, reporting position and tension. They even influence metabolism, secreting hormones that affect other tissues. The muscular system is both mechanical and chemical, both structure and process. The heart, that tireless pump, works without rest from before birth until death. The efficiency of its design, 4 chambers coordinating to maintain 2 separate circuits, valves ensuring one-way flow, a self-generating electrical system controlling rhythm, all of this enables continuous operation under varying demands. Heart rate adjusts moment by moment based on activity level, emotional state, and metabolic needs. Blood pressure shifts to maintain perfusion. The cardiovascular system is responsive and adaptive, qualities that keep it functional across a range of conditions, but also make it vulnerable when demands exceed capacity or when regulation fails. Blood itself is a remarkable tissue, liquid but cellular, carrying oxygen, nutrients, hormones, immune cells, and waste products. The specific properties of hemoglobin, its ability to bind oxygen in the lungs and release it in tissues, the cooperative binding that makes this exchange efficient, these molecular details matter at the scale of the whole organism. Without hemoglobin's particular characteristics, aerobic metabolism as we know it wouldn't be possible. The molecular and the organismal are not separate levels, but continuous, each depending on the other. The kidneys, those paired filters in the lower back, process the entire blood volume dozens of times per day, removing waste while retaining what's needed. The nephron, the functional unit of the kidney, performs this selective filtration through a combination of passive and active processes. Glomerular filtration is non-selective, pushing water and small molecules out of the blood. Tubular reabsorption selectively reclaims glucose, amino acids, and most water. Tubular secretion actively removes certain wastes. This 3-stage process maintains blood composition within narrow ranges, a task so critical that kidney failure rapidly becomes life-threatening without artificial replacement of this function. The brain's energy demands reveal its importance. Though it comprises only about 2% of body weight, it consumes roughly 20% of the body's oxygen and glucose. This disproportionate demand reflects the cost of maintaining neural activity, of keeping billions of neurons poised to fire, of supporting the synaptic transmission that underlies all thought, perception, and behavior. When blood flow to the brain is interrupted, as in stroke, neurons begin dying within minutes. The brain cannot store energy the way muscles can. It depends on continuous supply, making it exquisitely vulnerable to disruptions in circulation. Consciousness, that most familiar yet most mysterious aspect of existence, remains unexplained by physiology. We can map which brain regions activate during specific experiences. We can identify neural correlates of awareness, attention, and self-reflection. We can describe the difference between waking, sleeping, and altered states in terms of brain wave patterns and regional activity. But none of this explains why there is something it is like to be conscious, why subjective experience exists at all, rather than everything happening in darkness. This explanatory gap persists despite advances in neuroscience, suggesting either that we're missing crucial concepts or that consciousness poses a fundamentally different kind of question than other physiological phenomena. The relationship between mind and body, between subjective experience and objective biology, defines much of what makes us human. We are material beings, subject to the laws of physics and chemistry, built from atoms that obey no special rules. Yet, we are also experiencing beings, living from the inside, aware of our own existence in ways that seem to transcend mere mechanism. Reconciling these perspectives remains one of the deepest challenges in understanding human nature. What we can say with confidence is that the body is a marvel of complexity, a system of systems operating at scales from molecular to organismal, coordinated through mechanisms both chemical and electrical, shaped by evolution to survive and reproduce in challenging environments. It is simultaneously robust and fragile, adaptable and constrained, automatic and controllable. Understanding its workings doesn't diminish wonder. If anything, it deepens appreciation for the improbable achievement of being alive, of maintaining order against entropy, of sustaining the conditions necessary for consciousness to arise and persist. The body you inhabit is not a machine you operate, but a process you are, an ongoing event rather than a static thing. Every moment, millions of chemical reactions occur. Cells divide, die, and are replaced. Signals race through nerves, muscles contract and relax, blood circulates, breath flows in and out. All of this happens whether you notice or not, whether you understand it or not. The machinery that keeps you alive operates mostly in darkness, doing its work while your attention is elsewhere. But attention can be directed inward. You can notice your heartbeat, feel your breath, sense the tension or relaxation in your muscles. You can become aware of the body's signals, learning to distinguish genuine need from habitual craving, actual fatigue from mere reluctance. This awareness doesn't grant control over autonomic processes, but it can inform choices about rest, movement, nutrition, and stress management. The body speaks in sensations, and learning its language can guide action more wisely than abstract principles or external rules. The stories we've explored here about hearts and lungs and nerves and bones, about digestion and immunity and sensation and thought, these are ultimately stories about what you are made of, how you work, why you feel what you feel and can do what you can do. They're practical knowledge with implications for how you live. They're also reminders of connection, that you are not separate from nature, but a manifestation of it, built from the same elements as stars and stones, operating by the same principles as every other living thing, yet somehow different, somehow aware, somehow capable of studying and understanding your own existence. The human body remains, even after centuries of investigation, a source of genuine wonder. Its complexity exceeds our full comprehension. Its capacities surprise us, its vulnerabilities humble us, and its persistence, the sheer fact that it keeps working day after day, year after year, maintaining itself against constant threat, adapting to changing conditions, healing from damage, learning from experience. This persistence is nothing short of miraculous when you stop to consider what it requires. You are, at this moment, an expression of billions of years of evolution, of trial and error, on an unimaginable scale of countless generations whose bodies succeeded just well enough to pass on genes that became eventually you. That lineage is written in your cells, in the structure of your proteins, in the organization of your organs. You carry the past forward while creating the present, embodying both inheritance and novelty, both constraint and possibility. The body will age, systems will decline, eventually they will fail. This is not pessimism but realism, the acknowledgement that life is finite and the machinery that sustains it wears down. But between now and then, there is time. Time to move, to sense, to think, to feel. Time to use this improbable assemblage of matter in ways that create meaning, connection, and understanding. The body is the instrument through which all of that happens, the necessary condition for every experience you'll ever have. So perhaps the real insight from understanding physiology is not mastery, but appreciation, not control, but respect for what occurs beyond control. The body knows things the conscious mind doesn't. It heals without instruction, maintains balance without supervision, coordinates complexity that would overwhelm any deliberate attempt at management. Trusting these processes while supporting them with good choices, that might be the wisest response to the knowledge we've gathered. The body's story is your story, written in flesh and blood, nerve and bone, in rhythms of breath and heartbeat that mark time from birth to death. It's a story still being written, still unfolding, still capable of surprise. And it's a story worth paying attention to, because it's the only one you'll live from the inside, the only one where you are simultaneously author and character, observer and observed, the question and the answer, the mystery investigating itself.